Hello and welcome to another episode of Content Creators Unite, the show where we discuss all things content creation. So if you want to learn how to grow your business using your blog, newsletters, ebooks, and more, you are in the right place. I'm your host, John Clements. Our guest for today's episode is Nick Jain. Nick is the CEO of IdeaScale. He graduated at the top of his class from Harvard Business School and has led companies in three radically different industries, including trucking, high-end sneakers, and B2B software. He enjoys playing poker and running and is an excited soon-to-be dad. So first off, Nick, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much, John, and thank you for the very warm introduction.
You betcha. And also, again, I said off air, I'll say it again. Congrats on being a soon-to-be dad. That's wonderful.
Yeah, my wife and I are very excited. It's a bit of a crazy experience because it'll be my first time, but being responsible for the life of another human being, but very excited.
That's okay. I've been through that. I've got two teenagers and I have the gray in my beard to show for it. So cool. So that's a little bit of your background, but there's a whole lot more of your background. You have done a lot of things. You've accomplished a lot. So could you just take a minute to just share with us and to me and my audience, just a little bit about your background and how you got it is to doing what it is you do?
Sure. So my quick background: grew up in Canada to a typical immigrant family from India. Came to the United States for college, studied mathematics and physics, spent the first 10 years of my career on Wall Street being a professional investor in technology companies. So doing multi-billion-dollar private equity and hedge fund deals, business school at Harvard. After that, went back to Wall Street for a while. And then kind of randomly, I got a call one day, said, Nick, you've been doing a good job being an investor. How would you actually like to run a company? And so this was from a private equity firm that wanted me to help run a $100 million revenue trucking company. And for me, it was a really exciting job because I'm in my late 20s at that point. And somebody's calling me up and saying, hey, do you want to run a company? And that's a really kind of once in a lifetime opportunity. So obviously I said yes. I knew nothing about trucking at the time, but kind of learned a lot on the job. And then for the past 5 or so years, I have become somehow what I would call a professional CEO. So either private equity firms or founders hire me when they're ready to take the company to their next stage of growth. So they bring me in because my skill set is how do we grow and scale companies. And now I'm on company number 3. As you said, I've done trucking, high-end men's shoes, and now B2B software.
Wow. So that's very interesting. So professional CEO, and then you're basically taking whatever company from where they're at to where they want to go.
Correct.
That's cool. I like that. So for you, like, what's the most exciting thing about doing that for a living? Like, what do you wish everyone knew about how cool it is to do what you do?
Sure. So my passion, one of my great passions in life, I've known this since I was a kid. I like building stuff. In high school, I used to be a carpenter. That's how I made money in the summers. It was wonderful to see a building at the end of the summer. That could be a church, it could be a temple, it could be a strip mall, whatever it is that I helped build. As CEO, I'm just doing that at a higher scale or at a larger scale where I'm seeing that I'm building a company and the company has many things. It has a product, I'm creating jobs. And that's such a good feeling at the end of the day or at the end of the week, knowing, hey, I helped create jobs. I created a product that a customer, and I don't mean I mean, I participated in, because it's obviously a company is so many people working together to achieve a goal. So that's what excites me. And that's what I love about this job.
That's cool. Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, I love the fact that you're focused on, like, I created something of value, or, my team did. And like, we were able to create jobs. Like, how killer is that to say I helped someone get a job? Like, that's pretty cool, man.
Oh, it is awesome. Like, especially, over the last 2 or 3 years, as you may be aware, the tech industry has gone through some challenges, right? Like venture capital pulled back, and both major companies like the Facebooks and Metas and lots of small startups laid off people, went out of business. IdeaScale didn't do that. Quite the opposite. We actually grew. And that's such a good feeling to know that, hey, I helped preserve and create jobs here versus, an industry that's gone through some really difficult times. And yeah, I feel really good about that.
Yeah, and you should. That's awesome. I wish every CEO felt as good about that. I don't think they all do, but I think you do. And that's amazing. So in addition to creating jobs and creating products, I checked out your website, IdeaScale, I think. Yes. IdeaScale.com. And boy, have you created a lot of content. So you've got white papers, you've got case studies, you've got a blog, you do a ton of stuff over on your personal LinkedIn account. So can you just talk to me just for a minute about, like, what is your content creation workflow look like?
Sure. So I'll roll back the clock to where we were 2 years ago. So 2 years ago, we had no marketing presence whatsoever. We didn't have an SEO strategy. We didn't have a blog. We had no content, no white papers. Case studies were 4 or 5 years old and were kind of, not put together well from a presentation point of view. So about last February, we hired our first real marketing person, and then we hired our second person, I think, in last May or so. Um, and that's what really kicked off our content marketing strategy, or our marketing strategy. And we don't do really any paid advertising. It's almost substantively all content marketing of some form, whether that be a blog, whether that be email marketing, whether it be webinars, etc. We started off by doing two things. Number one, we started off with events and a really strong SEO/blog strategy. And on both of those two things, as well as everything that's followed suit, our philosophy has been our content has to be innately valuable to the consumer of that content and is not what I call thinly veiled advertising. So many times people write a blog entry and it's just a trumped up way to sell whatever your product is. Whereas if you go read our IdeaScale blog entries, they say nothing. They literally say nothing about IdeaScale. They don't mention the name. They don't try and sell you any software. The only thing that has that's relevant to IdeaScale is it's our URL. It's hosted on our URL. But the content there is the most valuable content in the world for innovation experts, right? So if you Google like innovation, any innovation topic, it's Wikipedia, Harvard Business Review, and us in some combination of those three, because like our content is really good. And that's also true of our webinars, that if you go listen to our webinars, they're not us saying, here's 10 reasons to buy our software. It is an expert on the topic of innovation from a customer. And literally, they don't even talk about using IdeaScale software. They're just talking, and some of them don't even use IdeaScale software. They're just sharing best practices, ideas, how innovation works. That's the industry I play in. So our strategy has always been, or not always, since for the past 2 years, and I'll list some of the impact of it, has been, let's create good content that is valuable to the consumer. And look, if they find value from it, it's great if they use that as a jumping point to come be customers of ours. But even if they don't, we're okay for that. We did good in the world along the way. And the impact has been extraordinarily successful. So to give you context, I have 6 times more organic web traffic than my next 9 competitors combined. Ooh. And they, on average, have twice the marketing team size, and they are all spending tens or hundreds of thousands, not hundreds, but like call it $30,000 or $40,000 a month on digital advertising. I spend zero, and yet I'm getting more organic traffic, like 10x more. And even actually, my organic traffic is greater than their paid traffic. I get more people showing up to our webinars because they're not, hey, here's 10 great ways to use IdeaScale. No, it is next week's webinar, or 2 weeks from now, we have a webinar hosted by the gentleman, Magnus Carlsen, who wrote the international standards on innovation. Not the chess player, by the way.
Oh, not the chess player. Like, holy cow, you're really
no. So yes, not the chess player. Same name apparently. But that webinar, has no affiliation with IdeaScale. He's showing up and doing a talk on the International Standards Organization Standard 56001, which is the international standard for best practices on innovation. Has nothing to do with IdeaScale, but our customers care about it. And great, we want them to show up to the webinar. And if they don't, come back to it, if they're not customers, who cares? It's free. They enjoyed it. They got value, maybe 1 out of 10 customers. So that's our strategy. A lot of different mediums to deliver value to customers. And hopefully they realize that either out of gratitude or the fact that we are demonstrating we're actually really good at what we do, that they come back to us.
Yeah, I love that. I love the idea of leading with value. I mean, that's something that even you're at a much bigger scale than I am, but that's how I try to do it, because I'm not trying to sell anybody anything. I'm just trying to provide value. I'm trying to get relationships going. So I love that approach. And I'm glad to hear of an example where you were able to make it succeed and make it, get like top 3 spots on Google success simply by providing real value to people. I think that speaks to, that's just, that's never going to go out of style. I don't think it's just, that's the way to do it.
People want value, especially free value, right? Especially
free value. So along with that, so you said you started a couple of years ago, you hired a couple of marketers and you've built it up. I'm going to go ahead and guess that you just didn't start out on day one, first page on Google, outranking your competitors by 10 times. I'm guessing there was some kind of path and journey, and there was some kind of challenges you had to overcome along the way. Is there like one or two you could think of that maybe are at the top of your mind?
Sure. So it took us about 3 months to go from being from a cold start to being top three on kind of the topics, and we've continued. We didn't obviously stop once we hit the top three. We continued saying, okay, we want to win more keywords. We have more topical areas or content areas, etc., or content gaps. I mean, so I think a few challenges. Number one is that it is an internal political challenge, which is, look, if you're generating marketing and traffic, that eventually the sales teams and the business side of the organization does want that to turn into sales leads in some way. And so you have to show a causal link that, hey, there's all this cool stuff I'm doing. First of all, just wait and see. But 3 or 4 months later, here's how those sets of actions or content marketing has led to lead opportunity. So that's the internal political battle, which is very different than if you do paid advertising, because you know that someone clicked and went and bought your product. So that causal relationship is something that a lot of folks have to marketing leaders have to manage internally. Second is the second challenge was fighting against paid search. So most of my competitors spend significant amounts of money and resources on paid digital advertising. So if you Google innovation, we're almost, or anything related to innovation software, best innovation practice, whatever the keyword is in any language, we are typically a top 3 organic result. But my competitors are often paying significant amounts of money to be ranked above in the little blue, Google sponsored bar. Mm-hmm. Even funnily enough, for when you search my company's name, somebody is paid to put their ad above my company's name, which is kind of frustrating. So that's really frustrating because customers are clearly searching for content and they're being served bad advertising. The good news is, like, customers are smart because if you actually look at the click-through rates, customers are paying on clicking on my organic content more often than they're clicking on my competitors' paid ads. And then secondly, my competitors are basically burning money for the most part. So that's really emotionally frustrating for us, but it's actually a really wise business outcome if your competitors are doing, uneconomic things and you know that you're doing the right thing along the way. The final thing is, obviously, as anybody in content marketing is aware of, or especially SEO, Google changes the algorithm every couple of months, right? And so you have to adjust to that dynamically. They made a big change about 4 or 5 months ago that smashed our web traffic by about 20 or 30%. Again, we were way ahead of our competitors still, even losing 20 or 30%. But we were ourselves unhappy. Like, we're not going to take a 20% line down. So it took us a little bit of time to readjust, but now we're back to where we were. In fact, we should end up further ahead. But that's a constant kind of battle. You have to fight against Google's algorithm, or put out, even when you have good content, you're still fighting the algorithm at times.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're definitely into the world of SEO now, and it sounds like SEO is a key component to your content strategy, and you've kind of set yourself up to make sure that you're winning in that area. How else are you reaching people? Are you using email lists? Are you using your connections on LinkedIn? What else besides SEO is going on?
Yeah, so I think we do most aspects of marketing other than probably paid advertising and influencer marketing today. So we have, as I mentioned, a monthly webinar series that's often with a external speaker. We have one big annual live event that's actually happening next week in Washington, D.C. We have email marketing, although email marketing, candidly, I think we're less effective than we can be. And that's much more aimed towards our existing customers rather than acquiring new customers. And that marketing is much more, hey, here's it's product marketing, telling them about cool new features about the product side. We have a pretty active LinkedIn profile, both me personally as well as the company. And a lot of that is sharing our white papers, our case studies, which are all available on the website in the resource section, ungated. So there's no paywall. In fact, we don't even, one of the things we do, which is kind of crazy, but it actually works, is we don't force you to give your email. You want to download my white paper? Great, go ahead, right? We're not going to demand your information or any of that. What else? I think other than influencer marketing or paid advertising, we're probably doing most forms of other marketing, both in the digital world and in the physical world.
Nice. So it's kind of like a nice, sounds like you have a nice strategy where I'm not just relying on one or the other, but I want to kind of, have that in all the areas.
Like SEO webinars tend to be our strongest performers, but we are generally like successful in all of them. I would further add that in addition to kind of the content strategies, we've obviously leveraged a lot of technology in order to achieve this, right? Whether it be email list software like a ZoomInfo or Apollo, a CRM like a HubSpot, LinkedIn Sales Navigator, all these tools are arming both our sales and marketing teams in order to not only reach people, but reach people with the right content, personalized as specifically as possible.
Nice. Um, yeah, for sure. So we've talked a little bit. So you've got all these different aspects of marketing going on, and they're all based on providing value uh, really freely to your customers or potential customers, or really just anybody who wants to learn
Yeah,
more about the thing you're doing. So then how do you look at the success of any given piece of content? Like, does it tie to a dollar amount? Do you care about the metrics, or is it really about just getting your name out there? Like, what does that look like?
sure. So this is something we struggle with, and I personally struggle with. So I'm a mathematician by training. I love analyzing things. There is a fundamental problem when you want to do kind of attribution now, any sort of marketing attribution analysis, that you need a large sample size and you need analytical sophistication. The good news is at IdeaScale, we're a software company and I'm a mathematician. We have analytics out the wazoo, right? We have engineers, mathematicians, all that fun stuff. The difficult part is the type of marketing attribution analysis that would be ideal to say, hey, this piece of content drove this much, leads or conversion rate or increased probability of conversation. That typically requires a very high sample size, and that requires a very short sales cycle in order for you to do that analysis. And that is typically only possible in B2C, where the sales cycle is very short, you have lots of content, and you have a very, very high sample size. So for example, when I was running the shoe company, that was something we analyzed incredibly specifically, like which ad, which time zone, which geography, which type of content, which medium, whether it be, Google, Instagram, Snapchat, whatever it was. We analyzed all that. At IdeaScale, that's a lot more difficult to do because if we take an action today, given our sales cycle in B2B is 6 months to a year, we won't actually even see the impact of that for a long time. And it's really difficult because in those 6 months, lots of piece of content, like hundreds of pieces of content, hundreds of touch or dozens of touch points may have happened. So what we do, I think, is kind of two things in order to address that problem. One is just philosophically, we understand that the analytics in B2B software is not, or the attribution analytics is not going to be as good as it could be in other six. And we just have to live with that as an emotional reality. The second thing is we use what's called a priori proxies, which is, okay, when we do a what do you have to believe analysis. So let's imagine I'm putting together 5 hours to put together a piece of content. That 5 hours of my time, let's say $50 an hour, that I basically spent $250 of the company's money in terms of the value of my time putting together this piece of content. We do some ROI analysis to figure out, did I generate $250 of value? Actually, because we want a 10x ROI, did I generate $2,500 of value? And we're very, very analytical about that, because the good news about software companies is there's a very simple formula to figure out how much value you generated. And you work backwards saying, okay, to generate $2,500 of value, I needed to have sold 0.01 customers. 0.01 customers means that I had to have 10 meetings, which means I need to have 1 million impressions. Will this piece of content have 1 million impressions? No, therefore it was probably a bad decision to do in the first place. And we don't do that at a specific individual piece of content level, but rather, hey, do white papers make sense? Because if it takes 30 hours to make a white paper, how much value does it need to create? And do I believe that as a probable outcome? Because if you told me that a white paper or a B2B white paper needs to have 1 million impressions to be a good business decision, that's not going to happen. Like any reasonable person say, no 1 million people are not going to read your white paper, right? That is a best-selling Harry Potter level book.
Right.
And I think we're great, but no, we're not. 1 million people are not going to read our white paper. So if that was the requirement for this to be a good business decision, that would be a bad business decision, and we should not do white papers.
Nice. I love the analytics. That you're like, I can tell you're a math guy because you're digging deep in the analytics, and to be in in the world you play in, like that's the perfect application.
Yeah. But actually, one quick comment on that, like for whether you're a small business owner or whether you're B2C, and again, I was selling shoes at a small startup. it is really important to understand some marketing analytics. And there's free courses on there at places like Udemy and Coursera. And the reason is because otherwise, as a marketer, you're creating a bunch of content that may be just an absolute waste of time, both for your customers because they're not reading it or seeing it, and for you because you just spent your, sweat, blood, and tears and money putting together something that's useless. So as it's not just that I value analytics because I'm a mathematician, I think it's important for any marketer to have a firm grasp on whether their content or marketing creates value.
Yeah, I like that. And actually, that kind of led into my next question, which was, like me or a lot of my listeners, they're not going to be running multi-million-dollar companies, and that's okay. We don't all have to do that. So my question would be like, if you were starting tomorrow with a startup, like for some reason IdeaScale didn't work out, or maybe you win the lottery and you're like, see you later, suckers, and you got some brilliant business idea, right? It's like,
Mhm.
what is the first thing you're going to do as that solopreneur to get your marketing up and running? And like you mentioned, maybe educate yourself might be a good first step. But what else?
Yeah, I think the very first thing would be to, if I'm a solopreneur, then I'm doing everything. I'm doing product, I'm doing finance, I'm doing HR, whatever that is, right? I would generally say, like, I am not going to be able to do all of that no matter how hard I work. And I would focus my time on the things that matter. And I think I'd be a very good product guy. And I think I'd be a very good sales guy. I think I'm a great marketer, but on a relative basis, I'd much rather spend my time doing product and sales. What that means is there would be a deficiency in marketing. Someone needs to do that. By the way, I'm terrible at graphics. I'm a mediocre content writer. So what I would do is hire somebody. And the beautiful part of today's world is you can hire you from a global talent pool at an affordable cost. So if you're sitting in America, you can hire a full-time employee in an emerging economy for $5,000 or $10,000 for a full year of labor. And that person is really smart, right? Nowadays, they speak English, they have great internet access, and that's a full-time employee for a fraction of the cost. So all of a sudden, it is possible for a solopreneur for just sub $10,000 to have a full-time employee. Isn't that really powerful, to having somebody work for you who's an expert and you're able to pay them a great wage for where they live, and yet they're creating the value of a full-time employee for you, which is amazing. So I would go out and find those people. And again, you can find them from Fiverr, Upwork, or literally just post an ad on LinkedIn and saying, hey, I'm hiring somebody based in this country. They need to speak English. They need to understand SEO or content marketing, whatever. And in 2024, there are people all over the world with these extraordinary skill sets and mastery of the English language. So there's this just tremendous talent pool that you can tap into.
Man, great answer. I love that. So in our remaining couple of minutes, as important as the business side of things is, I also think the personal side is equally important. So I want to actually get to know you just a little bit better, and have our listeners be able to get to know you a little bit better. So I know that if you're like me, you work a lot, but hopefully you have some time when you're not working. And here in about 4 weeks, you're going to have a considerable amount of time when you're not working. so, so when you're not working or on a podcast or whatever, what do you like to do for fun?
Sure. I think like three or four things. Firstly, I love playing poker. I'm a competitive poker player. If IdeaScale for whatever reason didn't work out, and I could probably go make a living off of being a professional poker
Nice.
player. Secondly, I actually just really enjoy learning. So right now each month I'm spending between 20 to 40 hours doing additional like courses, and reading like classic books. So in the past month, I've done a course on prompt engineering, a course on computer algorithms, database management, read half of Moby Dick, and read 3/4 of Paradise Lost, as well as reread The Elements of Style, which is that classic like college writing book. So a lot of reading and a lot of studying, because it's just it's fun to learn, but B, it's also practically useful. Uh, and then C, once in a while, like video games. I don't know if you can see that little dude with this
Yeah.
sword back there. That's kind of black. That's a boss from a video game series called Dark Souls, which was probably my favorite video game of all time because it was just insanely hard and made me feel like I had a life accomplishment after I beat the game. And then obviously spending time with my wife, right? Doing anything from household chores to going out and grabbing dinner.
Awesome. I'm going to have to ask my son about that video game. He's the expert at our house. I'm terrible at them, so I don't play them.
I'm terrible too, but that's what made that game so enjoyable. That like you're bad at something and then you just worked your way to eventually beat it.
Nice. I mean, the little guy looks pretty cool, though. I will say that.
Mhm.
Um, so again, with your varied history and lots of success, which again, congratulations on all of that. And you've no doubt accumulated a ton of wisdom. You shared a bunch of wisdom with us already, but just speaking from like a life perspective, like what is one piece of advice or one bit of wisdom that you could give our listeners that would help make them a better person?
Can I do two? Because they're
You can do
go ahead.
two. Yes, you can do two.
Number one, work your butts off. I think people underappreciate the value of hard work. Everyone assumes, someone's was born brilliant or born, super athletic. People who are good at what they do work extraordinarily hard. So don't underestimate the value of just grinding, right? And that helps you achieve success in so many facets of life, whether that be relationships, work, money, whatever. The second is invest in education, particularly, and not just like during. I'm not talking like stop learning at 22 when you graduate, get your college degree or your tech, some sort of technical trade. Invest in continuous learning through your life, because for two reasons. Number one, it's going to keep you engaged and it'll be interesting. Number two, skills atrophy and become irrelevant over time. The skills that were relevant to be employable or useful as an entrepreneur or marketer 10 years ago are totally useless today. Like all the SEO trip, using marketing as an example, all the digital advertising and SEO tricks that worked in 2010 are absolutely useless today because like TikTok didn't exist, like short form video didn't exist. Well, Vine was there for a little while, but like there's the world has dramatically changed, and the skills that people invested in 5 years ago may not be relevant and certainly won't be relevant 10 years from now. So invest in continuous learning if you want to stay relevant. Again, that's true whether you're a solopreneur or running $1 billion company.
Yeah, love it. I mean, that's just true in life in general. Like why would you want to stop learning? I don't understand. Like I want to keep learning until
Well,
I
so many
die.
people do because they think they've made it, right? Hey, I'm CEO, so I can stop trying now, right? I don't have to get any more degrees or learn any more stuff. And
Yeah.
that's a defeatist attitude, because someone out there, your competition, is investing in that and they're getting ahead every day.
100% agree with you. 100% agree. Now, and wait till you become a dad, you'll learn so much more. That's a whole other part of life that you get to learn about. So, Nick, where can people get to learn more about you?
Sure, two ways. Number one, the company's website is IdeaScale.com. Software is completely free for small organizations or teams less than 100 people. Check us out. Totally, completely free, not even a trial. Secondly, if you want to get in touch with me personally, best way is through LinkedIn. My name is Nick Jain. It's at the bottom of the screen. And I respond to 100% of messages, so feel free to DM me.
Awesome. Nick, thank you so much for being on today. So much wisdom, so much knowledge, sharing it freely. I love it. So much energy, so much positivity. Thank you so much.
Thank you, John.
And then for listeners, if you enjoyed our discussion today, be sure to subscribe because you do not want to miss out on these amazing discussions in our future episodes. And so with that, have a great day, and we'll see you next time on the Content Creators Unite podcast.